The only people who will ever listen to the words that I speak right now are people who watch the live stream back. So for those who are that committed, that into us, I say thank you for listening to the live replay. But you can always listen back on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube for the full version that my friend Jared edits. Speaking of which, hey Jared, how are you?
Good, Joe. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. You've got your name set as West Tigers faithful. Let's fix that. Let's go
Yeah,
read
do me a
J. Let's go JR Tiger. What's your
favor.
AKA Reedy? All right, JR Tiger. So if you're wondering who that bloke who pops off at the mouth on westtigersforum.com all the time is, it's this bloke, JR Tiger.
Ah,
Give JR Tiger westtigersforum.com a Google and have a look at some of the takes. Some shocking takes over the years. No, just kidding.
I sometimes find myself trawling back through my old posts just to see whether anything held up.
Yeah, me too. I do that. I think it might be. It seems like the sort of thing that is an ego thing, but I really don't think it is. I think it's an insecurity thing, if anything.
Yeah,
How good?
definitely. I'm like, all right, how bad did this go?
I really hope I didn't embarrass myself 2 years ago. Yeah, no, and thanks to everybody out there who's been popping off of the mouth on X. We sort of went to war in the last few days on Elon Musk's platform of fascism. Speaking of fascism, what a great day in Australian politics.
Coalition split.
All right, we're going to go live shortly. Right now, I'm going to start playing that sexy, sexy tune by State Fair. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go.
West Tigers Faithful, episode 33, I believe it is. Joe McCord is with me. How are you, mate?
Mate, I am all right. I woke up this morning and I said to myself, you know what? Today is going to be an awesome day.
Oh, well, with the coalition split, it certainly is. But I was going to say more on that later, but we certainly would not be talking about that anymore, mate. You look like a state of origin contradiction.
It's red. It's not maroon. It's red.
Oh, my
Red.
apologies.
It's not maroon. But look, fair enough. Look, I mean, I am a blue. I am from New South Wales. Despite the fact that I am devastated and frustrated at their continued disrespect towards the West Tigers fraternity that now dates back 2 decades, 3 decades, really. You know, you have to go all the way back to the halcyon days of the early 90s Balmain to sit for, you know, the New South Wales, you know, institution to have treated any West Tigers relative with any kind of respect. And I, for one, am sick of it. I personally think it's a joke. I think it was a joke when they dropped Appy. It's a joke that they didn't pick him. It's a joke they didn't pick Terrell May. Jahream Bula, not so much of a joke. He probably should have been dropped, and that's fair. But the other two should definitely have been picked. Joke.
Look, I thought that Reece Rodston did some phenomenal things last year's series. I thought he was wonderful. But if we're going to drop Jahream Bula based on his club form and not what he did last series, then I can't understand why Reece has been placed back in the squad. Now, I know that obviously Uppy's had his moments where he's been up and down, but in terms of the impact that he's had for his team and the individual moments that he's possessed, plus the kicking game that he also possesses, which he developed at West Tigers, by the way, you know, I think that he probably should have been the pick. If it was a defensive decision, I think that Uppy's defence has improved this year on compared to what it did was last year. But nonetheless, we sit here and these boys get a week off. And selfishly, as a Tigers fan, while you want to see them on the biggest stages, it's not the end of the world. Terrell May, he had 2 down games, obviously against both St George and Melbourne, but every other game he has been near flawless, and he was back to his flawless best against the South Sydney Rabbitohs. I quite simply, it's to me a disgrace. And look, I'm a biased West Tigers fan, but last year I thought Terrell was doing well enough off the pine for the Chooks to be considered. Given the improvement in his game and the way that he's developed and the role that he has at West Tigers, I quite simply cannot believe that he wasn't even picked in the extended squad.
I think like I've been somebody who has pointed out that I don't like. I said multiple weeks ago that I didn't think Terrell May is an Origin style prop. So, I'm coming from that point where I could easily, see why you might go with other choices if those other choices were strong ones. You know what I mean? Like if we had, 3 Payne Haas's or something like that, but we don't. And just because Terrell May's a little bit different and doesn't fit the mold of exactly the type of New South Wales prop that you need, doesn't mean that he's not still useful in that arena. And especially when you're looking and comparing him with some of the other props that I actually feel like it's actually a down era for New South Wales props. So it's like you kind of look at it and go, this is probably actually a good. It should be the easiest time for somebody like Terrell May to push his way into the side. Payne Haas is obviously now in doubt, and they still couldn't find a spot for him. Stefano Utuikamanu has been nowhere near as good as Terrell May this year. Max King, no slight against him. He's a good player. I personally find it difficult to accept that Terrell May could have done anything different and got himself picked. You know what I mean? And so when you kind of look at it that way, you got to ask questions about what is the agenda here? I know it sounds crazy, and I made this post on X about they drop Appy when it's ridiculous for him to drop Appy. They drop Jahream Bula. Okay, maybe you can explain that because Cleary and Moses are elite, right? And you can't pick Terrell May, but you pick Stefano as soon as he leaves the club. At a certain point, it's not paranoia or conspiracy theory anymore. It's conspiracy fact.
Two things. Stefano's actually regressed at Melbourne when you look at his stats. For all the talk of him becoming a premier front rower at the Melbourne Storm, he was actually putting up better numbers at the Tigers. But also, I guess the thing that's really begun to irk me is this discussion of Origin plays and the Max King getting back on his line off a line break. The last week was an Origin play. Terrell May has produced Origin plays for West Tigers from the moment that he had the jersey pulled on. Some of the charge downs that he pulled off against Cronulla, offside or not, were phenomenal for a front rower who had done 80-plus minutes in the middle. You look at what he produced, and we'll talk about the game a little bit later. You look at what he produced in the back end of our game last week. He was right there at the end. I find it truly baffled my mind, and what I really liked was the fact that Marshall confirmed that no one at West Tigers has been spoken to about Terrell May nor Terrell May's character, which, and I said it on X, it speaks to the conspiracy theories some people have about the amount of sway that the Sydney Roosters hold in the corridors of power at New South Wales Rugby League.
Yeah, I mean, and Craig Bellamy, because why else does Stefano get picked? There's definitely agendas that we seem to consistently end up on the wrong side of. Play devil's advocate. Other teams' fans, they'll get amongst it. They'll fire back on X and be like, why would we pick from the Tigers? They suck, mate. We're 5-7. This isn't
5-6.
Oh, is it 5? No, didn't we only 7 now? I thought that was the 7th loss. Anyway,
no, I could be wrong. We're 5-5 after Melbourne.
Okay, 5-6. 5 and 6. So it's not like
I'll
we're
cling
like
on to
running
that,
last
I know
wooden
it.
spooners.
I need that, mate. I'm clinging onto it.
I mean, but like what we had one bad loss. Sure, okay, fine. But Zach Lomax, Mitch Moses gets picked out of Paris, so that argument doesn't hold water at all. Like it doesn't. It shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter if our team's not good because our team's better than some other teams. So that's ridiculous. At the end of the day, I think Terrell May didn't get picked because they have a personal gripe with him, or they've heard rumors that he's, there's something that he's done to piss somebody off. I think that is obvious, right? But then they go and pick Spencer Lenu. Like, I mean, come on. Like, it's one rule for one guy and one rule for another, and those rules seem to be dependent on what club they play for. I think ultimately the way that they dropped Appy for Reece Robson in the first place was just as much of an indictment on the process last year. I agree with you. Reece Robson came in and played well last year. I totally agree. He played great. Phenomenal might be a little bit of a stretch, but he was strong. Like he was a bit of a rock, like in the middle there. He had a red hot crack. But Appy has outplayed him this season for sure. Reece Robson has not been in good form. He's probably the fourth or fifth best hooker in New South Wales this year.
Oh, if we're going to pick players on form, it's Wade Egan. Realistically.
Yeah.
Then he wasn't even in the conversation.
Not even in the conversation. Tom Starling.
Oh, yeah, that's a good shout.
So, yeah, like, I don't know what they're doing. I think it's... Laurie Daly, you suck, pal. Eat shit. That's all I have to say. All right, let's move on.
Yes, I was actually going to get you to shut up when you were saying that we're not last anymore. We're 5 and 6 because it's the perfect segue for what is going to dominate most of our conversation today, mate, and that is the mid-season review. So a lot of people will remember that at the back end of last year when we came back after our sabbatical, that we did an end-of-season review utilising the stats from the Great Rugby League eye test, Fox Sports, who no longer provide stats, which is a fucking nightmare for people like me, and the NRL. I have split it up into attack, kicking, defensive stats, discipline, and then some conclusions. Mac, I'm just going to read out what I've got here, and for each little section, and I will get you to sort of give me your thoughts.
I'll just pop off at the mouth like I always do.
Wonderful. All right. Well, let's start with the attack. Last year, we were worst in the league for run meters at 17th. This year, we have improved 10 places to 7th. This correlates with being 7th with average points scored, of which we were again dead last in 2024. We are also ranked 6th for possession. Once again, last year we were dead last. So all of those things are a massive, massive improvement. And as a lot of people know these days, run meters typically correlates with good attack, a large amount of them. Weirdly though, when you look at the average meters past the play the ball for each tackle, we are ranked 16th on tackle 1, 14th on tackle 2, 17th on tackle 3, and 14th on tackle 4. So the teams with good yardage stocks, so teams like the Bulldogs, will typically make more meters past the play the ball. They're ranked higher. We are ranked, as you can probably tell, near the bottom. Now, you can take out of this what you like, but for me, looking at our games, we seem to do reasonably well in the field position stakes, and our forwards simply work to points on the field as we get into the red zone before our halves go to work. Moving on, we are ranked 9th for where we play the ball in proximity to the try line when starting our set. So we're starting further upfield. Last year we were dead last. But I don't have the exact comparison for you. We're ranked 3rd for offloads, which is similar to last year. So obviously that's a hallmark of Marshall's philosophies. And interestingly, we are ranked 16th for supports, but we were ranked 6th last year. Decoy runners, we're ranked 6th compared to 3rd last year, so that means we're playing a little bit flatter, a little bit faster under Hodgson. Last year, we were actually the best in the league for line engagements, and this year we sit 10th. So this thing about playing expansively last year has certainly been reined in. I think, we sort of made a judgment last year that we were playing quite expansively because we didn't have players that could make meters. This year, with less supports, less line engagements, less decoy runners, it's clear that the mandate is pin it and run fucking straight. For those of you interested, I don't really care for it much, but we are ranked 5th for post-contact meters, and we're 6th for tackle breaks, which is an improvement on 14th. We make the least amount of errors in the comp, so therefore our completion rate is high. But if you thought our discipline was improved, that's about where it stops. But more on that later. Mac, the attack. What do you take from all that?
Well, I mean, it's obviously a net improvement. There's no two ways about that. I think that most of that improvement, I think that the improvement curve has sort of slowly been tapering as the years gone on, and I don't know if you'd be able to back that up with that data, but I suspect that we were higher in a lot of those stats prior to the Melbourne game and have come back down to earth a little bit. So with that in mind, I mean, I guess we're the reigning 3-time wooden spooners, and we're 5 and 6. There's improvement in a lot of the statistical areas that you'd want to see improvement in. We certainly seem like a club that is very data reliant. I've sort of come to realize this after reading that interview with what's her name, Cassidy. I think that our club does look at the data and make a lot of decisions that are data driven, which sometimes might cause people to think that the things that we're doing are a little bit weird when they're actually, data-driven decisions. And it kind of makes sense when you watch our attack. It's a very unusual attack that kind of seems to be, it seems to be like very much focused on getting to the right areas to play a very specific play in a specific area on the field at a specific time of the game. It's all very data-driven, I feel. And it seems to be working. The problem with those sort of like strategies in sports, and it's what you find in all sports that deploy these sort of moneyball type tactics, is that they can't win when things break down into intangibility, right? Like and things break down into intangibility when you've got things like champion teams of destiny, superstar freaks that you run into, or when you just need to go to another level. These sort of moneyball driven teams always seem to falter when it comes down to semi-finals or like championship games or things like that. And I think, as I pointed out last week, I feel like our big issue is actually, those sort of games when it's a really intense environment, when there's a lot of pressure on, when things going not our way. It all sort of falls apart, because those are the times when you need people to step up and just win in the moments and do the freakish, and that's when we talk about things like having the clutch gene. Club still doesn't have the clutch gene. You saw that by the fact that Lachlan Galvin dropped the ball over the line. So with that in mind, like, I think that it's one thing to give us a pass on, for sure, the improvement. And I'm somebody who definitely, in my own personal life and in business, focuses on continuous improvement, focuses on being better today than I was yesterday, not letting perfect get in the way of good. And I see that from the club, and I respect that. But I don't. I still remain unconvinced that the way that what we're implementing at the club and what we're becoming is actually a semi-final team.
Well, moving on. Kicking. We are ranked 2nd for total kicks, but 6th for total kick meters. So as a lot of us have seen, Luai, Galvin and the others aren't kicking the ball deep enough. It speaks to a need to improve this, and whether that be in training or personnel, I'm not too sure. You got anything there?
Yeah, I think that if there's one area that I feel like we're disappointing, it's the 7 and 6 coming into the season. There was this expectation that the 1, 6, 7 and 9, it would be like a top 4 almost level spine, and that rising tide would lift all ships. And I don't think that that's been the case. I think if anything, it's been the opposite. I think that the improvement in the likes of Stafford Tor, Fonua Bolle, and the arrival of Sunia Taruba, Terrell May and stuff like that has kind of actually papered over the cracks of what has otherwise been a very disappointing season so far by Jahream Bula and Lachlan Galvin. I think Api Coruscant has also been down on form for the most part, despite thinking he still should probably have been picked for New South Wales. Jahream Bula has been a revelation, obviously, but I think that the 6 and 7 play would be the big area of improvement I would expect. I would expect Benji Marshall's focus to be on that area. I think that in the moving forward, especially because Lachlan Galvin's announced that he's not going to be at the club anymore, we need to rethink that 7 and 6. And the first thing I'd be considering doing is finding a 7 that has a very good kicking game. I don't think Jahream Bula's kicking game is good at all. Not for a 7 in this league. He's never kicked a field goal in his life. You can't win semi-finals or close games without somebody in your team that can kick field goals reliably, who can step up and kick a 40-20, and we completely lack that. I don't think that Jahream Bula is a good game manager. I think that he looked like a good game manager in short bursts at Penrith, but that was because they have a really good system. The likes of Isaiah Yeo, Dylan Edwards, James Fisher-Harris do a lot of heavy lifting to make the role of a 7 when Nathan Cleary is not there not so difficult. That he doesn't have that here. Our 13 is Alex Twell. He's not Isaiah Yeo. So it's something that I would definitely look at as a area of weakness. I think our kicking game in general is pretty one-dimensional and poor. Our short kicking game in attacking areas is inconsistent. I think it is probably Jahream Bula's strength in as far as if he had one to his kicking games. Lachlan Galvin is very inexperienced. He hasn't really developed a good short kicking game really at all. If he was a back rower, it would be an elite one, but for a 6, it's not. That's sort of what I feel. I think that the 6 and 7 is the biggest area that we need improvement.
Talk about that a little bit more in the South review, but hard to disagree with any of it given you look at the stats and it's right there. Defence. This will be a little bit complicated, so just stay with me. We are ranked 12th for run meters conceded compared to last, so that's an improvement. Yeah, but that's pretty much where it stops as far as metrics are concerned. We are ranked 2nd for missed tackles. We've sort of said in the past that missed tackles aren't the end of the world for some clubs, but for West Tigers it is. Now you might ask why. I can actually tell you why. So when we miss a tackle, according to the Rugby League eye test, we concede an average of 7.66 metres. That is ranked as the worst in the NRL, meaning that these missed tackles are more costly than what they are for, say, Canterbury, and we miss the second most of them in the entire competition. We are also 5th for ineffective tackles. An ineffective tackle is when you have a hold of somebody and they get the ball away. When you throw in the eye test stat of conceding nearly 8 metres per missed tackle, it paints a picture of why we look lost at sea when teams throw second phase at us. Teams make 0.44 metres per run than what they are expected to, again, according to the eye test. This is the 3rd worst in the NRL, meaning that our contact isn't strong enough. And we're also ranked 12th when it comes to conceding run meters pre-contact and 12th post-contact, which means for me that line speed and defensive contact are both clearly issues. Mac?
What's our... do you have data there that talks about our points conceded?
I believe that before Melbourne, we were 7th. Post-Melbourne, we are now 15th.
And I would really be interested to see what I would call our red zone defense is like, because I feel like that we have an inordinate amount of points that are scored from longer or mid to longer range tries than most clubs.
I have something for you there, mate. Actually, so this stat is points expected over actual points expected, both scored and conceded. But I actually texted the eye test today. I couldn't get onto him. But this was before Melbourne and Souths. So we were expected to concede 16.5 points. We actually ended up conceding 21 points. So defensive, we actually didn't live up to defensive expectation, meaning that there were more long-range tries scored against us before the Melbourne game. So you throw in the Melbourne game, you throw in an 8 try against South, and that would have blown out even further.
Yeah, so that paints a picture to me of a club that's trying to defend really well but can't. And I think that's because we still, as a club, are just physically outmatched in most contests on the field. Particularly Lachlan Galvin, Alex Seyfarth, Abby Coruscant, those are probably the three biggest areas of defensive weakness at the club. Vonier Pole as well as a below average middle defender. Still, these are not issues that we did not know we already had. So there has not been much improvement in that area. The only thing that there's been improvement in is the intent, the willingness to defend, and probably the, just the want it factor, I think. And that's sort of something that you can put down to Jahream Bula, Terrell May, Sunia Taruva, actually, arriving to the club and lifting the standards of the club. But it doesn't seem like we've actually fixed the defensive issues that we already had really at all. We remain very, very fragile. We miss too many tackles, and when we miss tackles, we have gotten better at scramble, but only in terms of stopping tries, not in terms of stopping meters, as you've alluded to. The one saving grace I would say is that our goal line defense has improved a lot, especially if you take away that Melbourne game. Our goal line defense has improved a great deal, and goal line defense is definitely more attitude oriented in that shorter space than open field defense. That's very much about dominating a man in contact and making correct decisions. So, yeah, truth be told, I think that the problems still lie in 80%. Our side is small. Our side is still physically overmatched by most clubs. Big athletic types can just break tackles at will. They dominate us, especially edge back rowers of that ilk and middles of that ilk, and centers. Beyond that, I would say that we still have technique deficiencies because we've got a vastly younger team than most other clubs. I think that those issues, I would say I would not give us a pass mark on that. I don't think that we've improved enough on that.
I agree with pretty much everything you said. Goal line defence, it is clear that the structure is strong, but in terms of the physicality in the middle in regards to contact, line speed, wrestle, these things that that are super important in midfield, and then obviously when you've got a team in your red zone, like working the ball off their line, there's still very, very clear problems there, and you can tell that with the amount of highlight reel tries that have been scored against us this year. Just in terms of long range ones, you look at the try that Valentine Holmes scored against us in the Dragons game. Obviously the UNA try last week. These happen out of nothing.
Yeah, just like a bloke stepping out of one feeble tackle. It's alarm bells every time, and it shouldn't be that way. It's a question that I've been talking to you and others about a lot over the last couple of weeks. Is just I don't understand why other clubs seem to constantly unearth and develop physically superior talent to what we do. When we're the West Tigers, how many fucking KFCs are there in our catchment?
All right, well, I'll have to ask the eye test for that, actually. In the meantime, let's talk about
David Middleton. How many KFCs are there in the MacArthur?
Yeah, how many KFCs per capita or per square kilometre? I know that where I live, Tamil KFC, I'm pretty sure is the best performing KFC in the state. So
yeah,
that's Group 6 Heartland. So we'll leave it at that. But discipline. So get this right. This is really weird. It probably speaks to the fact that we actually drag teams into a dogfight with us, right? We have conceded more penalties than any other team on average, right? But when you add up, Mac, the amount of penalties that we have been given compared to what we have conceded, we have been given 7 more penalties than what we have conceded all year.
That's mind blowing.
How weird is that?
Nah, that's big conspiracy level shit there.
Now, do you want to see how even weirder this gets, right?
Yeah.
Set restarts, when you compare set restarts for compared to against, we are negative 14. Negative fucking 14 after 11 matches.
Yeah, that's similar to last year, isn't it?
So the question, no, it's not. For reference with set restarts, mate, we were positive 3.
Really? At this time last year or overall?
Overall. Are we unlucky with the referees in our red zone, or is our defence holding on for dear life when defending our line? Or is it a bit of both?
Oh, sorry. Are you talking about red zone set restarts, or are you talking about set restarts overall?
We'll set restarts implies when there's a 6 again for a ruck infringement or
And it's usually in
being within the 10 meters.
I think that I'll be honest with you. I think that referees go into our games and they police our games differently to the other games. And the difference between last year and this year isn't that they don't go into our games policing them differently. It's that they don't quite treat us as bad. That's the difference. So last year, they go into our games expecting the West Tigers to be bad with discipline. So they'd confirmation bias themselves into blowing whistles every time they saw anything remotely wrong. I believe that with all of my fucking heart, that's 100% what was happening last year. This year, it feels like that they've overcompensated because they recognized that they were doing that to the Tigers. Probably Richo went into the referees and went into catering and plundered their catering and threatened to consume all of their wives or something. But
I've got a great story about Shane Richardson and catering. I don't know if I can tell it.
But anyway, we'll get back to that.
When we have a West Tigers faithful meetup, I'll tell the story.
Wonderful. I do genuinely believe that the referees do not officiate our games the same way that they officiate other games. I don't know whether that's actually that controversial of a statement to make, because there is precedent for us knowing that referees have playbooks. We know that they do that. We know that in the pre-game they have areas that they look at, and it differs from game to game, and it's based on the clubs. We know that they referee semi-finals football differently to regular season, Origin differently to regular season. So I 100% believe that that they have on their tip sheet when they go into Tigers games, different things than they do in other games, and I just think this year on that tip sheet that they might have. Don't be confirmation biased into over penalising the Tigers on that tip sheet. But I still think
said that confirmation bias is a rubbish argument. I'll let you tee off.
Scott's entitled to his opinion. It's a fairly interesting opinion without any context, because I don't know what he's even trying to say. Are you just basically saying that my argument sucks? Because okay, you're entitled to your opinion.
Anywho,
anyway, I wasn't finished talking.
These discipline ones are weird. What else you got?
In terms of the set restarts, I think that it's probably minus 14. It's probably got more to do with our inability to force set restarts, I guess, than anything. Like when we're deep on the attack, we, give up more plays to set up the next play than most other clubs do when they're threatening on every play. So we don't put the opposition defenders under pressure on every play like most other teams do on every play when they're in the red zone. So at scale, you would expect us to... There's less opportunities for us to receive a set restart, if that makes sense. Beyond that, I would probably say that we just don't win the contact so much compared to other clubs. So that doesn't surprise me so much. It seems more like a reflection of the other issues that we were discussing about being physically overmatched, and also our methodical sort of approach to attack.
Yeah, and I mean, it's certainly what you make of it, mate. And these are stats, and you can pull out whatever you want. That's a fair school of thought. And given that it's showing up in other areas, why wouldn't it show up when it comes to discipline and set restart?
Yeah, all right. So Scott's basically just saying all teams get bad calls, but Scott also only showed up while I was talking and didn't hear your data. So Scott, you might want to just go back and watch the app a little bit before you start popping off the mouth, because some of the information that Rudy was talking about was pretty apparently obvious sort of data points.
My conclusions after talking about attack, kicking, defence and discipline are this. Our attack this year has improved exponentially. We are flatter, faster, more clinical, and clearly with the benefit of a refurbished clan of outside backs and middle forwards, we're making more metres. Whether or not you attribute that to the coaching staff is up to you. For me personally, I think this is the blueprint that Marshall always wanted, but he couldn't do it with the players that he had last year. You're now seeing more of it now, and it's being executed a little bit better. Defensively, tackle efficiency isn't the be-all and end-all, but you can see within the stats that our line speed and contact still isn't up to scratch, and teams are able to capitalise off the back of it when we inevitably miss tackles or concede offloads. All of this aside, my final statement is this. We are a mid-table side. That is reflected within these stats. We have certainly improved, but there is much work to be done. You heard a lot of it, being ranked 6th and 7th around the attack. The defence is ranked around anywhere between sort of 12th and sort of 5th, 14th, 15th, 16th. Where does that pit us? I think right now we're on track for about an 11th place finish. Mac?
I was actually going to make a similar comment earlier. It definitely seems like we are, I'd say below mid-table slightly side. 11th sounds about right. I think that, the Melbourne game's just a statistical outlier. You take that Melbourne game away and we haven't been pumped once this year aside from that. Every game we've been in, every game we could have won, every game. And we've played some decent sides. We have had a pretty lucky run. So to be 5 and 6 is maybe a little bit disappointing. We probably could have won 2 or 3 more of those games and been in with a real shot. However, I think that there are areas there that we can improve with the roster we have now. But there are also some areas there that I just don't think that we have the players to actually move the needle on. Things like the physicality issues. I think that we're still, a decent-sized middle, 2 probably decent-sized middles, and at least 1 good back rower, probably 2 good back rowers, away from being able to physically stand up to most other sides. But you see, good coaching can make, plug a lot of those holes. You see that at the Dogs. I don't think the Dogs roster is, super amazing. And they're performing very, very well. So, got to give a lot of credit to Cameron Ciraldo. So I think Benji Marshall probably, still thinks he probably does have the roster to compete, and he should give it his best shot. I think that the biggest moves that he can make to improve us probably have to do with the 7. I think that we need to find a 7 that can sort of marshal the game a little bit more, to do the general kicking and things like that. We'll discuss that probably in the review of the game.
Yes, we will. Nonetheless, I agree with your recruitment calls. I'm really, really hopeful, more optimistic than probably anything, that we do try and get some people in before June 30. We've got about 5.5 weeks to sort of work through that, and to me, it is a really, really critical point. Our run home's tough. I think that, similar to Richardson, we will improve. Absolutely, I think most teams do as the season rolls on. But at the same time, there is some clear holes and gaps in this roster, namely around the middle forwards and the edge forwards, as you said. And I'm hopeful that they make the right decisions as a result around that. In saying that, again, we are 5 and 6. The last 2 weeks have really been a downer, absolutely. But at the same time, we have stared in the face of the Warriors, who are currently running second. That was a game that we probably could have and should have won. Nonetheless, went down by 2 points. We beat the Cronulla Sharks, who will be there when the whips are cracking. And we've had some, some solid, we've had some games where against the Dragons and Parramatta and so forth, where, we've clicked in some places and looked terrible in others.
Yeah, we still haven't looked good. There still hasn't been a game where I've been like, we were really, really good for 80. Like everybody talks about the Dolphins game like it was our best game, but we were really bad for the first 20 minutes in that game too. So it has not been an 80-minute performance in this side yet. So we're lucky to have 5 wins, and it's probably is a good sign that we have some really high quality players that are actually like lifting the standards. But it's a very patchy roster still. That's the big issue. And a lot of what you said last week, after listening back to what you were saying about, roster positions 18 to 25, is bang on. It's where other clubs have the wood over us for sure.
Absolutely, and thank you for your agreement after our little spat last week. Do you want to talk about this game?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't think.
Just remember, just keep some time at the end for the New South Wales Cup review because
Oh yeah, I know you'll go in depth with that. So
we actually got a win.
we got
It was
win.
a good
So
win.
we'll get through this. West Tigers. Oh, sorry, Uppy Coruscant went down to the South Sydney Rabbitohs 22-12. I just want to give you guys an idea. We had more possession, although we completed at a lower completion rate. We had more runs, more run meters, more post contact meters, more line breaks, slightly less tackle breaks, but we were better on kick returns. Our play the ball speed was exact. We had nearly 4 times the amount of offloads that Souths did. We passed the ball more. Yeah, look, at the end of the day, this one is absolutely one that got away. And I will say that I am very, very proud of our outside backs, our middle forwards, our fullback, and our hooker. But we didn't play with our halves, and it was reflected in the scoreline.
Yeah, I was. It was my return to the disco, right? So, like, I was in the Discord server, and I haven't been in there for a few weeks, and so I forgot how histrionic the girls in there get when the wobbly boots on, and they lose their mind and what have you. And at halftime, I didn't want to fight too hard, but I was stoked, to be honest, Jared. I was like, went into halftime, I was like 12-6. We should be down 30-0. Like that first half was like unbelievable. And I thought that we played about as well as we were allowed to be honest. I just don't think that we even really had a chance. Like, I don't think we did much wrong. Like, we had a couple opportunities to score that we didn't capitalize on, but like, that happens to every club. We didn't have enough opportunities to really be upset about the fact that we were unable to capitalize on them. But to hold them to 12 points by halftime, when we had a guy in the bin and some of the calls that were made, Sevilla Havili's try was not a try in any stretch of the imagination. I believe that there was a rumour, and Jay in the chat mentioned it, that he literally walked up to John Morris and told him that he didn't score after the game. Anyway, I was stoked, and then we came out in the second half and we outplayed them. We were the better side in the second 40 by orders of magnitude, and simply just didn't get the job done. We came mightily close. Lachlan Galvin went within a whisker. We'd probably win the game if he scores that try. If you understand how the butterfly effect works, it's very likely that we would have won that game. And it was a Campbell Graham finger. So, look, it's another one of those, isn't it? It's another one of those games where I think a lot of the fans are, really down on it because, we're coming off the 64-0 loss, and it was like not the best game.
Turn it around, have to fix it.
Yeah, and we did turn it around, right? Because like you're the West Tigers, you're coming off 3 wooden spoons, you've just been spanked 64-0, you've had 30 strong minutes in the first half of absolute hell. And they were in there till the 79th minute with a. I wrap him, and Benji wrapped him, and Benji copped a lot of shit on social media for being positive about that. But you gotta. I just don't understand like how hard it is for some people to understand that like Benji Marshall is not going to come out in the post-game press conference and like talk like you because you're a fan and you're like upset. He's not going to come out and mirror you. He has a job to do which involves keeping his players motivated and being transparent, being fair. And like, I think you can't come out of that game and single out too many players as having cost us that game. I think a lot of players had a really good game. Jahream Bula, he ran for over 300 meters, man. Like, and not many of them were line breaks either, to be honest. Like, it was 300 hard meters that he ran, and he was huge. That was one of the best games I've seen him play. It was probably one of his, like, it was probably his best career performance that didn't have, like, big highlight reels, right?
Yeah, it was, as you said, he just rolled up his sleeves, as did Tito, as did Charlie.
Yep. Yeah, the back three was stupendous.
I agree. We mentioned before in the mid-season review sort of the stuff around size mismatches and the issues with physicality. it was there for all to see with Campbell Graham and his ability to completely shut down Adam Dewey, to also completely shut down Samuel Afainu. And then for Lachlan Galvin, the little weakling, not to be able to hold on to that ball as he goes over the line, that was pretty disappointing. But also the two efforts that Alex Seyfarth made for the Aitken and the Jai Arrow tries. People are worried about Kai Pearce-Paul and this, that, and the other. But if you look at what Kai Pearce-Paul does for his club defensively, it shows you why they're recruiting him and what we're missing currently. Look, I like Alex and he tries hard, but ultimately, those are key plays. And you throw in the Havili no try controversy and a couple of those misses, and suddenly you're staring down the barrel of the loss. Sometimes that can be the difference.
Yeah, I think Alex Seyfarth is. Oh, I've had enough. He's a trier, and that gets you a long way. It gets you a long way in the eyes of coaches a lot of the time. He's a simple player. You want to give him a simple role. 50 tackles. That's a big effort. Like, he had a big effort game. He always has a big effort.
Definitely. That's not what this is about. It's just
exactly
around the fact that, because if we're going to talk about effort, then Alex is up there on the metrics every single week. But simply just those key moments,
class
line, in contact, he just, unfortunately, he can't, deal with it. Which leads me to a question.
He's anti-clutch.
Yes, we have we have a question for us from Team Rocket Grunt Dat Boy on X, who asked us, why isn't Sukar, the best of our edge forwards, playing on the edge?
Oh, well, he is now. Yeah, we only just discovered that. Thanks for bringing that up, by the way, because I agree. Tony Sukar's probably played himself into a starting position if I'm the coach.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I'd probably have him right edge, depending what happens with Sam Weller and his MCL. TD continues to say, Seyfarth is a tackle bot and would do better to replace Twal in the middle when he comes off, while Suka would provide more venom on that edge. That's where we disagree. Whatever your name is, TD. Something or other.
Team Rocket.
Team Rocket, Dad Boy. I disagree with you there. I will always remember round 2 against Canberra last year. Seyfarth played at lock. Everybody was saying how good he was going to be there, and within 2 sets, he was being absolutely rolled by the Canberra forwards. I think for him, it is probably bench back row. It's probably you swap him and Sukar's roles. Providing that Samuel is fit. And we've spoken about Samuel. He's not having the best year, but he's a better player than Alex Seyfarth. I think genuinely that's the only role that Alex can hold down in first grade moving forward. Providing that Kai comes across.
I think Alex Seyfarth's not going to be in our 17 when it's full roster. I think Jack Bird's a better bench back row option because of his additional utility value that he brings. Tony Sukar didn't start the year in our top 17. I think he straight swaps with Alex Seyfarth. I don't think that you bring Sukar in and then push Seyfarth to the bench and push Jack Bird into the extended. I think Jack Bird's a better bench option than Alex Seyfarth any day of the week. So I think, I think straight up. It's question marks about whether Tony Sukar, I don't know what he's like on the right. I've only ever seen him play on the left when he's a back rower. It may be that Tony Sukar plays on the left and Sam Weller switches to the right, because I wouldn't be against that, because I think Sam Weller is kind of, he might need a change up. It might be the making of him to move him to the right, to be honest. So you never know.
Yeah, look, we're going to talk about it now, but there might be a change in the halves, which at this point I believe is a necessary change, and he might want to play next to his brother. Look, we've spoken about Jahream Bula and whether or not we think that he's a 6-7, and I think that, look, a lot of his kicks last Sunday were made to look even worse by how strong that wind was at Campbelltown, and you compare that to what Humphreys was doing with the ball on the end of his sets in that second half, and you can see how bad the wind was. But nonetheless, Luai's got some work to do, and he said as much himself. But I think that when it comes to Lachlan Galvin, I think we are reaching the end of the rope. I look at our attacking structure, and I feel like it has been built to appease him. He is the one sweeping left edge, and Jahream doesn't sweep around the left edge. He almost exclusively plays on the right. I think that lack of speed and that turn of pace in terms of turning the corner and playing square is really hurting us. Lachlan is a very sideways player. He was able to beat his opposite on his inside shoulder, but then drop the ball. So ultimately, does Latu finally score that try? I think he probably does.
Oh, easy. It doesn't even get touched, mate.
Yeah, and then obviously, there's been some issues defensively with Lachlan, which I put down to attitude, that have really only reared their head since he made his contractual decision. I think it is. I said it at the top of the review. I think we are playing without halves, and I think this desire that was built in pre-season to appease Lachlan, to get him to sweep to the left edge, is really hampering us, because I see what Jahream is doing with the pass before the pass, digging into the line and creating space for Lachlan on the outside. And we are constantly being hurt by the fact that it is not Jahream or Latu that is sweeping on that left-hand side shape.
Yeah, I I agree. I think Lachlan Gowan. I think his days as a West Tigers six are probably over. I'd say 80% likely, primarily because I think that there's a lot of fire to the smoke that is this rumor that he's going to be going. So I don't know whether you can't pick him if he's at a different club, Jared. So I think that he's probably going to be gone anyway. But even if he doesn't go, if Latu Fainu's fit, I think he gets picked. The worry, because Latu Fainu doesn't seem to be able to stay on the field for more than 2 games at a time. I don't think he's played an 80-minute. I think he might have played one 80-minute game since he's been at the club.
He did at the beginning of the year, and then before that, it was last year. Yeah, I think he played 2 80-minute games. So, yes, I've spoken about it a million times. It is absolutely an issue. But if he can get his body right, and touch wood, he does, I think we are a much better team for it. And I would really like to see us go back to the traditional way of playing football in the modern era, which is park your halves either side of the ruck. You have Uppy, sort of working through the middle. I would start Jack Bird at 13, and I would have Jahream Bula sweeping both edges.
I don't mind that idea. I think that's a pretty good idea. I don't think it's likely that we pivot away from our properly bedded in attacking structure in the mid-season. I think that it's probable that we do a fairly significant pivot in the off-season towards something more traditional without Galvin there to need to kind of build around. But I think that what's more likely to happen is you'll just see, what the game plan that looked like the week that Galvin didn't play. And that was I don't think Fainu was in the game that week, was he? I don't think he was fit. Dewey, yeah. So it'll be Fainu sort of playing that role instead of Dewey. I personally, would probably like to see more of what you described, but I just don't think it'll happen. I also think that there was a little bit of a sign in the New South Wales Cup that's the direction that they might be taking, because they picked a guy at 6 in New South Wales Cup that probably can play the Galvin style of 6 if he actually puts a good month of football together in the New South Wales Cup. That would be Christian Mapapalangi, who obviously came over from Newcastle, and he played well. He played really well in the 6 in New South Wales Cup. He played very similar to Lachlan Galvin, is very much attacking the line, late ball movement offloads, and he put on 2 tries. So they very much might be looking at Mapapalangi as potentially an option in case Latu Fainu is not healthy.
Let's segue into that reserve grade game, pending you have nothing else to say about the South game.
I would just add. I just wanted to shout out Terrell May. I think Terrell May had an absolute blinder. 19 hit-ups, 199 runs, 63 tackles, 0 missed. I think that they already had the Origin side picked, but both him and Api Coruscant came out and did their best to embarrass Laurie Daly, and I think that they succeeded, because if you look at the social media chatter after the side was announced and they weren't named in it, I wonder if those two had played that well last week, if they would have got picked. I reckon they probably would have, to be honest. I reckon it would have changed.
I disagree with you, mate. I thought Keon and Campbell Graham were phenomenal.
And Keon too.
I thought Terrell, Jahream Bula, and Api were all wonderful.
I'm really curious. I want to talk about just briefly. We won't talk about it for very long.
Go on.
Like I've talked about it a couple of times, and we talked about it in the preseason. Like Jahream Bula's origin eligibility. Now he's eligible for Queensland, but he's on the record saying he doesn't want to play for Queensland and he wants to play for New South Wales. But I can't imagine that if Billy Slater gets on the phone and says, "Look, Jahream, you're eligible for Queensland. I know your heart's with the Blues, but it's Origin football. It's the making of you, mate." I can't imagine Jahream Bula just goes, "You know what, Billy? No, my scruples and values, no, buddy. It's not. We're not living in a fucking fairy tale, are we?" Like Jahream Bula would say yes.
Well, I wonder, bro, because like
He's a different cat.
Rob Toyer is a wonderful footballer, right? I think he's a phenomenal talent. He's had class in spade for years. You could see it. And once he finally didn't get a bum steer with injuries, he was always going to be a classy player. Origin written all over him. But 10 first-grade games? What?
Yeah.
Now, look, I'm really curious to see how he goes. And as a New South Welshman, I kind of hope he stinks it up. But
he will.
surely Billy Slater put a call to Jahream Bula a month.
Surely. And like, can you imagine if Jahream Bula was named on the wing for Queensland? The New South Wales selectors and New South Wales fans would have been like, "Oh fuck!" Like Jahream Bula's never played a first grade game on the wing, but he is exactly who you pick him Queensland on the wing. He would carve, bro. He would carve. He's an absolute freak. You've never seen him try to score a try like a freakish wingers type try. He'd do it in his sleep, dude. Like he's one of the most freakishly talented ball handlers in the game today. And you only see him play straight as a fullback, but like put him on the wing and say your job's to finish, your job's to freaking be a freak. He'd be incredible. He would be absolutely incredible. I can't understand how he's not in that side. Unless it's literally...
He must be loyally devoted.
He must be. It's a madness. Like Jahream.
Which I absolutely love.
Oh, yeah. Look, I mean, sure. Like, but he's not... You're not ever going to be eligible for New South Wales, mate. You're not going to play. You're not going to ever play for New South Wales. They're not going to magic up some sort of clause to get you into the New South Wales side. The New South Wales side don't pick Tigers players anyway, buddy. So take the call... After Rob Toyer does his hammy after 5 minutes, Joseph Suaalii style or whatever negative thing happens to the poor bugger.
Isaac will probably get Jahream out of the club, and then the season after he get picked for the Blues.
Isaac Moses needs to go to Jahream and be like, "Buddy, can you go out and reverse that statement and tell Billy Slater publicly that you play for Queensland? Because you're going to earn a lot more money when you're like 20 game rep Origin star, and Queensland would love him, dude. Like it's madness. Like he's GI's his mentor, and GI's the original Mid-North Coast New South Wales Blues rep that played for Queensland. Like surely GI's just like, Bula, our mob play for Queensland. What are you talking about? I just
Scott says that Queensland is stacked with fullbacks and wingers, but I tend to disagree. They didn't pick Selwyn Cobbo because they've had disagreements with.
Did they pick Rob Toyer? What are you talking about, Scott?
They picked Rob Toyer. Xavier Coates is rightly there, but Valentine Holmes is a geriatric, and then you've got Jesse Arthurs on the extended bench, who, as far as I was concerned, was a Kiwi, but he's nowhere near in the same stratosphere as Jahream Bula as a footballer.
No, he's not. And he's a good player. I actually think Jesse Arthurs should have been picked ahead of Toyer.
Yeah, look, I don't really care as long as they lose. But so whatever, play on.
Whatever.
State Cup. I know you watched this game because you gave me a million updates. The Magpies finally had a win, 24-6 in a bottom of the table clash, and you teased it a little bit with Christian Mapapalangi. But please continue.
Yep, so MVPs for this game, the prop Jackson Rami had his best game, and I actually think Jackson Rami is going to end up playing NRL this season. He had 18 carries for 189 metres, 62 post-contact metres, and he was tireless. He also had, what are we going to look at here, was the tackle count? He had 24 tackles to go with that. Not a huge amount of tackles, but yeah, he was pretty incredible in attack. He was in two separate stints. Running all over the top of him. He looked like Keon. Jackson Rami, now New
That's
South Wales Cup
impressive
game.
from Jackson, given that he was starting in the front row. I was worried about it given the size mismatch, but he seems to have really improved these last few weeks in terms of his running stat metrics.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's starting to figure out how to play middle, and it's mostly just coming down to just willingness to just bash. Like he's just getting the ball at speed, running very straight. Now, like I think that Heath Mason had a great game, very threatening. It didn't come out on the stat sheet too much, but every time he touched the ball, he looked like he was going to make a break. Isaac Tuitupu, he is starting to round into form where I wouldn't be surprised if you see him start to at least be viewed a bit more as a possibility as an NRL depth player. I think he didn't have an off season.
Yeah, actually, he was training trial at Canberra, which speaks to the fact that I think with his structure, because we tend to slide and scramble, Canberra are a little bit up and in, and that's sort of reflected in the way that you sort of see him rush out of the line in a Nofaluma-esque way. Yeah. But if he can fix that, yeah, I don't disagree. I think that he'd probably be underneath Staines in regards to wing depth.
Yeah, I agree. I think he does a job too because he's big and he's good out of yardage. He's hard to put down. He's decent under the high ball in both an attack and defense. So he does it. He will do a job. Like he's definitely better depth than I would have said he was like a month or two ago. I think his fitness is getting better. He looks like he's getting fitter as the season's progressing, which is good. I feel like he came in quite underdone. I know you say he was on training trial at Canberra, but it felt like he came into our side. And the games I watched earlier in the season, he was like gassing very fast.
Don't disagree.
You can't sugarcoat the Souths are definitely not a good team in this grade, but I actually think the Magpies played quite well. I think that if they played that well against most sides, they would have performed, they would have had better results than they've had in the past. One of the things that the commentator said during the run that I didn't actually realize was that in our last five games, we've played the top four sides. So it hasn't. Maybe we're not as bad as it appears. Maybe we've just had a pretty wretched run, and they went through a bad lull, and maybe this kickstarts them a little bit. I really liked Kurt Falls at 7 in this game. I saw the Kurt Falls that was the Penrith model. Like he was controlled the game well. His kicking was really good. He was finding space with his kicks. He was pinning them down. He ran the ball quite effectively too, which was surprising. I was getting a little bit of like old man Reynolds type vibes off him. But no, he had a great game. And again, probably if he can back up, look, it's one game from a bad side that has had a bad season. But these are the names that stood out. I thought Josh Felady was I don't think that he's going to see first grade at the West Tigers. I think he was probably the biggest liability, to be honest, in the team. His handling is really poor. He did score a try. When he gets the ball close to the line, he's a freak try scorer. Like he's very hard to put down. It's just outside of that 5 meter window where the try line's within his eyesight, he turns into a plotter. It's very strange. Eliel Zakem had a really good game. I would suspect that now that where we are at the at this point in the season, I think you've got Isaac Tuitupu, Christian Mapapalangi, who put on 2 try assists, but otherwise was pretty bad, to be honest. But like I think that those 2 try assists were pretty good plays. Kurt Falls, Jackson Rami, Eliel Zakem, they're players that that I could potentially see playing in NRL later in the season. Solomon Afar-Tape, this looks like he's level to me. But yeah, I Jackson Rami's the big one. I think Jackson Rami, especially considering Funua Bole's injured, considering Samuel Afainu's now injured too, and Rami can sort of play back row and prop. I actually wouldn't be surprised to see him get an NRL start within the next month, to be honest.
Interesting.
Off the bench, obviously. I just think that he's probably a better option off the bench than Seafarth, to be fair.
I mean, I don't disagree. I think the Seafarth doesn't really provide impact.
Yeah, Jackson can. He's big.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I mean, I guess we'll wait and see. I mean, he's.
I'd rather him play back row. I'd rather him play back row off the bench, like if anybody was gonna, because he runs straight and hard and fast. So like I could see certainly him causing more. So the reason why I thought Tony Sokar was impressive in first grade this week was he was actually like making Jahream Bula look a little bit better by just running it straight off him, and breaking tackles and getting some PCM. Whereas Sam Weller sort of doesn't hit the ball at pace. He's more at this point in his career. You sort of you want to give him the ball with heaps of space so he can wind up and then ball play a bit. He's a bit more like that. And Seafath's just Seafath. So, I wouldn't be surprised to see Rami. I thought Eliel Zakem. Look, the knock on all these guys is the same. They are all just, New South Wales Cup players. Let's be honest. They drop the ball too much. They miss tackles. They're all at that Ruben Porter type level. The job doers I could see getting a chance. There's players in our top 30 right now that they're better than. There's gaps in our top 30 anyway. As the season progresses, you have to start going towards depth. They're the names that I would see as having given a shot. Are any of them like potentially, freaks that might, come on and, prove to be more than depth type first graders in this side? Not really.
I think Mapapalangi has promise, but I've always been deeply concerned about his defensive woes. That they have always been a problem, and as you have moved him further in from the wing, these problems begin to fester even more. Mate, I've just got two questions for you. One is around Heath Mason. I heard again he was pretty high effort play. He's made some decent try saving tackles, and the Johansson Cup.
Well, Noah won the game, but Tim was the better player on the day. I think that Noah just didn't really have that much impact. He gets kind of dominated in the collision a little bit. I think he's a little bit light for the middle, to be honest. Tim's a bigger model. It just looked like a big brother, little brother type thing. They came together a few times. And it was like it wasn't. They just treated each other like footy. It was weird. Like it was like it's tackle, get up, walk away. Like there was nothing cute about it. Like they weren't about that business very professionally. Heath Mason is again. That's just more evidence to me that he's a fullback, not a six. He can't ball play, dude. Like he's all of his strength at this point in his career is just speed off the mark, low center of gravity, power through contact, tackle breaker. Ankle breaker, real good off both feet, steps off both feet well. I think, the idea that he wants to... I heard somebody tell me, it might have been you, that Heath Mason himself's on record saying that he wants to make the West Tigers 14 his position, and maybe that's what's inspiring him to, have a crack at 6 in New South Wales Cup and go back and forward in positions. It might be just a developmental thing that they're trying to do for him.
Yep.
I'd like to see him more at 9. To see if that's something that he could do. He has the body type for it for sure. That low center of gravity, quick off the mark. He looks like a hooker. He's strong as an ox. He's a jacked young man. So I don't know why they've not. If they're developing him, like if they're floating him at different positions in New South Wales Cup as development, it's a high time that they try him at 9, in my opinion. Because if he's going to be a 14 long term, he has to be able to play hooker.
Yeah, I think there's some genuine upside there.
Yeah, and 13.
Cup, mate?
Good win. Aaron Payne, congratulations. I know we've been mad on his case. I'm sure he doesn't listen to this podcast because he probably would have maybe given it one cursory listen once and heard me calling him names and marked it as a blacklist item. I wouldn't be listening to it either if I was you, Aaron. But congratulations. Yeah, that's about it, man. Like, look, there's some dudes in this team that I just do not understand what we're doing. Like Charlie Murray, he had 10 carries for 76 meters, 17 post-contact meters, bro, as a starting lock. Like that's and he was against the bottom of the table team, like that we kind of dominated in the middle. This dude just runs into people and just gets stopped. He is not big enough, not strong enough. He should be playing for the Coffs Comets, bro. He's not a New South Wales Cup level player. And like Richo, stop with the rich digital nepo hires, buddy. We see through this shit. Knock it off.
Nice. Flag the entire competition, had a week off, but they pulled the SG ball lever again. Logan Brooks starts at fullback. The Tautua twins are actually in the centres. They've moved Solomone Sakura to the back row. Mark Tanos and Max Lyles are the halves, which is a little bit interesting. Mark named in the 6 and Max at the 7. I would have switched that, but nonetheless. Jared Haywood starts at hooker. Christian Torpau-Moores makes his flag debut in the heavy 10. And Jez Liadagaga, who has been pretty good off the pine for the most part as a small forward, will start at lock. The bench, the two main players there to sort of have a look at are Phoenix Godney and Archie Duncan. They have been named. So those boys go to Fiji. So enjoy it, lads.
No, that'll be an easy win.
It's well, fingers crossed, yes.
I'll flog them.
And also, City Country was on the weekend. I didn't watch the 16s, but the 18s. Hiamasi Makasini had a wonderful game. Phoenix Godney didn't see heaps of ball, and I was pleasantly surprised by one Glassy, who, while he had some moments defending against Hiamasi Makasini, which would have been difficult and proved to be in a couple of occasions, he looked really likely and had some great moments with his own. So, not a bad hit out for our boys.
Solomone Sakura is named in the back row.
I literally said that. You weren't listening.
No, I wasn't listening because you talk too fast. Solomone Sakura is named in the back row. Finally, oh god, I can't wait. I am sure that he's going to play in a roll as a back row. That's my quantum, bro. Like, get around that one. I don't know if you know, but Logan Dininger. Brooksy played Sydney Shield last week as well. So he did, and he played fullback. Yeah, he played fullback for the Hawks in a 37-36 win. So they're actually definitely blooding the crap out of him. They've thrown him into fullback and flag. Cameron Cannan has been okay, and he's older than Logan and bigger. Logan's pushed him to the wing. It's a good-looking side. I think that they'll have a pretty good time in Fiji. I reckon they'll be unfortunately putting the silk tails to the sword as per usual. But no, it's an exciting roster. I hope they do good.
Me too.
Yeah.
They are, to my understanding, the only West Tigers affiliated men's side playing this weekend. The women's premiership kick off there. Oh no, they don't start till July, so ignore me. They are the only Tigers around. So pay the old $6.95 for your Bar TV 48-hour pass and enjoy. I think we're done, Mac.
Yeah, maybe. It feels like I don't know. It feels like that the Tigers are more scandalous than this episode gave credit to. Like, I feel like that we were too level-headed. I feel like that our listeners wanted us to come on here and explode. Benji Marshall, mate, you're in the hot seat, buddy. Get your act together. You're not up to the job, mate. Is that better, guys? Is that what you wanted to hear? This is West.
I know there's a few people that'll be happy hearing that.
This is West Tigers Faithful, not West Tigers Unfaithful. If you want to hear West Tigers Unfaithful, it's called West's Life. Go listen to that podcast.
See you next week. I don't know what we're going to talk about, but we'll see you then.
Oh, I know what we'll talk about. We'll talk about the Jersey flag. No, we'll probably do a bit of a. We'll do a deep dive into the signing stuff. Let's do that.
Let's do that.
We're only strangers till we realize this life is temporary.